What's up guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Out of absolutely nowhere, Nintendo announced this entirely new 2D Zelda game in which you actually play as Princess Zelda, which is something fans have been asking for a while, without actually realizing that they got it twice within the Philips CDI games. But today I'm going to be going over the timeline placement of this game. I'm going to be going more into the lore of the game and where it would actually fit within the timeline. So let's first off just go over the timelines in which we know that this game cannot actually appear in. So we have 5 timelines in the total full Legend of Zelda timeline, which gives us 5 different universes, but there's 2 that we can eliminate right off the bat. First off, in Echoes of Wisdom, we can see that Hyrule is not flooded, which means we can eliminate the adult timeline. It could possibly go sometime after Spirit Tracks in the era of Hyrule's rebirth, but the connections with this timeline and with this game are very minimal, so I'm going to eliminate this, while it is still a slight possibility. And then we can also eliminate the initial timeline before any of the splits, because we can see Ganondorf is actually in his Ganon form in Echoes of Wisdom, which means it would have to be sometime after the game Ocarina of Time, in which Ganon first turned himself into the Ganondorf form, and it seems like he is permanently in this form, similar to that of in the Hero is Defeated timeline. So now we have 3 timelines that it is possible for this game to be in, and I'm going to go over each of the connections with each of these timelines and then go over which one is the most likely. But before I do that, I do want to mention that this game could go in a lot of different places in the timeline. So I'm just going to place it wherever it seems to have the most connections and the least contradictions. However, there is likely a lot of different places that it can go, and Nintendo even before has encouraged players to decide for themselves where they want certain games to actually be placed in the timeline, such as Oracle of Seasons and Ages and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So with that, I'm going to discuss the 3 most likely places that I think this game could take place, and that's going to be in each of these 3 timelines. So the first place that I think this could be is actually as a prequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, before the Great Calamity, sometime during the millennias of peace after the imprisoning war, because we can see at the very beginning what looks like some Zonai symbols on Link's cape, and what also looks like Zonai architecture in the place that he actually fights Ganon for the first time. However, this style of architecture and these symbols may not exactly correspond to the Zonai, because they've been seen before in other installments of the series. However, we can also see that the Sheikah are likely going to have a prominent role in this game, which while they still exist within the rest of the timeline, they only have been this prominent in the merged timeline in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom. And the lamp that they use is actually the exact same lamp that we can see in these 2 games, and we can also see some characters with Sheikah symbols who look similar to Impa and Robbie, who may be some descendants of them, like their parents or grandparents who resided in the old Hyrule before this. And we can see the Great Deku Tree in Echoes of Wisdom, and it seems to actually have the Master Sword pedestal right in front of it, just like we can see in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom. However, in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you're able to see and hear legends and stories about the Great Calamity from 100 years ago and the Ancient Hero and that great battle from 10,000 years ago. However, in between this time during the Millennias of Peace, there are no stories that we hear about this time, and since it's called the Millennias of Peace, we can probably assume that Ganondorf or Ganon was likely dormant during this time, and there was probably no hero or Link during this time either. However, that does not 100% confirm that Echoes of Wisdom doesn't take place here, but now that we have discussed that one, let's move on to in the Child timeline, where I think this may take place between Twilight Princess and in Four Swords Adventures, because in Echoes of Wisdom we're actually able to see in the Gerudo Desert that this is one of only 2 2D games in which the Gerudo actually appear, and the other one is Four Swords Adventures. which they do in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which is also a connection with this timeline as well. But if this were to take place likely in its own era between the Twilight and Shadow era, in between Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures, it would be an entirely new Link and a new Zelda. And also we can see that there is a Hyrule Castle town, just like there is in Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures. And also in one of the scenes, we can see both species of Zora in Echoes of Wisdom, the Sea Zora and the River Zora. And once again, both the Sea Zora and the River Zora appear in the Child timeline. And this is one of two timelines in which they actually appear. In the Child timeline, River Zora appearing in Four Swords Adventures and the Sea Zora appearing in Twilight Princess. And in the Fallen timeline, with all of the other games having the River Zora, while Oracle of Seasons and Ages actually has both species of Zora, the River Zora and the Sea Zora appear. However, they are not in Hyrule. It's actually in Labrynna, in which Link meets the both species of Zora, which means if it were to take place in either of these other two timelines, there would have to be a pretty long time in between games for the River Zora to disappear or reappear in the Merge timeline, or for the Sea Zora to disappear or reappear in the Fallen timeline. Whereas if they were to take place in between these two games, it would make perfect sense for the both species of Zora to be there. So the final place that I think this could actually go is at the very end of the Fallen timeline. After all of the rest of the games have taken place that do not include some of the things that we see in Echoes of Wisdom, and later for a new era to begin in Hyrule, and for us to be able to see all of these things, like the Zora, the Gerudo, Castle Town, and the Great Deku Tree. So based on the three most likely places in each of the three possible timelines that it could take place, I think the most likely is probably going to be in between Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures, since there seems to be the most contradictions in the Fallen timeline, and the least prominent connections in the Merged timeline. So once again, I do want to say that this is just my own theory of where I believe this game may take place, and I'm not trying to claim that this is the exact placement of the game. So if you think that this game may take place somewhere else, make sure to let me know in the comments down below, and why you think that. Alright guys, so this is what it looks like. Here, let's zoom out here. We can see it in the Child timeline. Right here, Echoes of Wisdom in between the Twilight and Shadow era, in between Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures. Now, once the game comes out and we have a little more information on it, I will likely give this era a name, or possibly place it somewhere else in the timeline entirely. But if we come over here now, we can see it in the expanded Legend of Zelda timeline, and this time it's actually in between Four Swords Adventures and Link's crossbow training. And if we zoom out here, this is the whole thing here. And then in the canon universe, this is it zoomed out right here. And if you want to view this timeline, or the timeline of the expanded Legend of Zelda universe, it's on my website that is linked in the description down below. And make sure to also check out my other video on the Zelda timeline, in which I go over the expanded universe, including every installment in the series. It should be right up in the top corner right over there, or you can click it right over here in the end screen. So if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to drop a like down below and subscribe with the notifications bell on, so that you can be notified of all of my future videos as soon as they come out. And with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.